Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, communities, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we write thought pieces every other Sunday, and we actually have one scheduled to drop this upcoming Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. If it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 10 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô les meufs et les mecs. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today our topic of discussion is mental wellness. Now, on our conversation of mental wellness, as you see in the description, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to curb the worrying. And I think that this is a great topic because something that can definitely have a negative impact on our mental health, but even before it impacts our mental health, one thing that can really hinder on our ability to cultivate mental wellness is the way that we spend our mental energy. And I think that it is definitely characteristic of most of us to worry, and that can definitely have really detrimental effects on our overall sense of wellness and our overall sense of well-being if we're constantly in a state of worry. And I am someone, I tell you, I have always been a bit of a worrier. I've always been an intellectualizer when it comes to my problems. I'd like to think my problems through, and I have definitely carried the hat of intellectualizer, overthinker, catastrophizer. I mean, I've done all of these different things, and it's interesting because I didn't really realize to what extent it had a negative impact on my overall sense of well-being. Always thinking about the worst case scenario, always planning for the worst. And yes, it gave me a sense of preparedness, but preparedness for events that generally never took place, right? And even in the odd case where I had a worst case scenario script lined up, even if I had used those scripts in those moments, there was always a level of improvising that took place because it's not ever just the script that you create in your head. There's always interactions with other people. And over time, I realized that there was a whole lot that I spent my time worrying about that really just wasn't worth the energy that I expended. But more than that, I learned that there was really just no justification for any amount of worrying when we really get down to the root of it, that the future is unexpected, it is uncertain, and no matter how much we worry about the future, no matter how much we try to plan for the future, if we really just own the truth that the future is really not ours to control and manipulate, we can spend more time creating beautiful memories in this present moment, right? And if we think about our past experiences, regardless of the cuts and bruises that we've gained along the way, we have survived every past experience that we have been through by varying degrees, touched by those experiences, but we have learned so much from those experiences. And one thing that I've learned from all of the experiences altogether is that life is unexpected. And as much as I am type A and love to plan and I love order and I love structure and I love predictability, those are elements that really don't comprise and don't lead to living like a full life, leaving life, giving yourself the opportunity to be surprised and allowing yourself to just be, right? And I think sometimes when we're in our head too much future planning or thinking about future events that haven't taken place, we can't enjoy this present moment. And I have cultivated 3 tips that have helped me deal with worry and deal with anxiety and curb the catastrophizing, curb the intellectualizing, and curb the overthinking. And it has really brought so much more peace, mindfulness, and just calm to my life. I recognize that the future is uncertain. It's always going to be uncertain no matter how much that I think about it. So I spend most of my time thinking about things that I do believe serve me and putting my energy where I feel like I'm getting a return on that investment. So I want to share some of those tips with you, and I'd love for you to put these tips into practice if you consider yourself to be a catastrophizer, overthinker, or analyzer. But even if it is the case that you are engaging in those behaviors, you can at least put thresholds on how often or how much you're engaging in those behaviors so that you can spend your energy more wisely. And so the first thing that I've learned, I love goal planning and I love to visualize my path and visualize my journey, and like it's very vivid, complex, like motion picture visualization of how things are going to go in my life. And up until a certain point, because these visualizations were just so rich and it involved a lot of people who had a certain degree of steady state in my life, like it really felt good to have things manifest and have things translate and articulate the exact way or almost very close to the exact way that I envisioned them. But I think that that's just happenstance. It was happenstance, and part of it was me bulldozing or forcing situations in a way that didn't really serve me the way that I thought that it would. Like it gave me a sense of satisfaction, but if things always happen the way you expect them to happen, there's really very little room for growth. So as my dreams got a little bit bigger, as my goals became more ambitious, these visualizations that I would have that would mostly comprise of experiences that I've had in the past had lots of solid gaps, solid holes in them, because these ambitions, these visions, these dreams that I had involved a lot of unknown. They involved experiences that I was going to expose myself to that I wouldn't have had a sense as to how they would shift and change me and how I would personally react and respond in those situations as well. So it's really hard to visualize when your big picture is limited by your lived experience. And when you're in the habit of being creative and of visualizing and being a visionary and building steps, because I'm also very sensory. I like to build the steps towards the visions that I have in place. But a lot of my visions up until the last few years have been fairly encapsulated by like things that I knew, things that I recognized, insight that I had already drawn from the past. Whereas now I'm building into a state or into a place that is very unfamiliar. And I think that the thing that I've learned about building into unfamiliarity, building into uncertainty, building with this threshold for ambiguity, it means that I needed to learn to expect the unexpected, and not just expect the unexpected, to let the unexpected influence my perspective on things. And I think that has really done a huge job in curbing my worry, because I have this perspective attached to the visions that I have. I have beliefs, values, emotions attached to the perspectives that I have that are driving the vision that I'm working towards. And when life is unexpected and the unexpected happens, sometimes what makes that very jarring, it makes it a very jolting experience, is our resistance to having those experiences shift and change our perspective on things. A lot of it is us trying to hold and maintain our beliefs, our desires, our values, and our emotions attached to the perspectives that we've had that have been driving our actions and driving the decisions that we've made. And what I've learned is, like, the more I step into the unknown, the more that I'm unsure about what happens next in my life, despite of things that I'm doing to create a specific outcome, to allow the unexpected to influence my perspective. So when the unexpected happens, it is a moment now where I pause and I reflect and I allow this interaction with my environment to influence, well, how do I want to move forward now that this unexpected event has given me this new information, has made me see things a little bit more clearly by way of like my vision and its relationship with reality, and the resistance that I didn't expect, or the obstacles that I didn't expect, or just the players or different elements that are coming up that I just didn't anticipate and I couldn't have anticipated because I'm stepping into the unknown. I'm in foreign territory. There's not a whole heck of a lot that I can foresee when I'm out of my element completely. So I think when it is the case that you're out of your element, rather than protecting the perspectives that you have in place, protecting the beliefs, the thoughts, the values, the emotions that you have in place that are attached to the vision that you're hoping to carry towards, allow that interaction to have a play on you, allow it to have an impact on you, to influence you. And you might just decide, hey, same perspective, but different actions, right? Same perspective, but here's a little bit of a revision to this belief, to this value, to these emotions. Now that I'm trying to incorporate these elements that the unknown has introduced to me into my belief system, into my schema. But I think that recognizing that adaptability means really being cognizant of the resistance, the defense that comes up that protects your scope of reference, that protects your view of the world around you. That is not going to help your growth, it's going to hinder your growth. And when you feel that resistance coming up, you feel yourself sort of bristling in the face of these elements that are impacting your ability to pursue a vision that has all these blind spots in it anyways. I think curb that resistance and take all of that new information into consideration. Allow that information to influence you and recognize that that's going to be your new normal. Like the bigger your dreams, the bigger the visions that you have, the more you have to just recognize that life is going to introduce elements that you've never thought of, that you've never expected, people that you never thought you would meet. And it's important to incorporate those elements into your schema, into the way that you see yourself moving forward, into how you see yourself moving forward, and not to get worried about it. Recognize that new things springing up is going to be part of your new normal. So build belief systems around incorporating the unexpected so that you're not jolted, jarred, and constantly resisting this new information because of the way that it's influencing your view of the world around you. So I guess that brings me to my second point, which is flexibility is key and being responsive when life happens. And I think that this is so crucial and something that I've learned just in the last even 3-4 years of my life, that it's easier for me to push through unexpected, unforeseen situations if I'm flexible, if I allow myself to be malleable, if I allow myself to pivot, reorient as things are being reintroduced to the best of my ability. And I think that this really forced me to just remove the perfectionism lens, because when you're in the unknown and you're unsure and you don't have the tools, you're kind of cultivating the tools in practice. There's no opportunity to learn the theory, gauge, what would be the best way to move forward, because there's time constraints to your response. So you have to do things responsively, and you want to do things responsively and not reactively. And the difference between the two is there's still an element of thinking involved, right? You're not just allowing your emotions to get the best of you. Your emotions are definitely incorporated, they're involved, but because you want to be flexible, because you want to be adaptable, you gave yourself an opportunity to take in the new information and to decide, with this information, how am I going to respond? And I think that when we don't catastrophize, when we don't intellectualize, when we're not overanalyzing, we're in the present. And when we're in the present, it gives us an opportunity to really be responsive to what's happening in our present realities. And with what's happening in our present realities, to allow ourselves to be flexible, to adapt, to be malleable to the information that surrounds us, opposed to the information that we have rooted in our brains that we're trying to respond to. And this is a huge shift that took place very recently, again, in the last few years, because I have big visions, big ambitions that I'm pushing towards, and it involves me recognizing that my schema, the things that I hold true, were elements that were reinforced with where I was at that level in my life, with the things that were taking place in my life then. But I'm in a completely unknown territory, even like with entrepreneurship and my personal life. There's so much around me that is such new information that I need to step into this present moment, and I need to give myself an opportunity to really allow this present situation to flow and bend and shift the way that I view the world around me, the way that I think about things, the way that I build towards this future state that I'm hoping for, so that I'm not lost in translation. So flexibility has really been a key life skill that I've had to flex in the last few years, because in entrepreneurship, every year is a different year, right? As my business grows, as I would be driving the growth so stringently if it wasn't for the environment or external factors playing a role. And I have to recognize that there is a certain gift in the environment being responsive to my efforts, because it's just showing me the reality of things. And the reality of things is very different from my visualization of things, but I'm cultivating the tools that bridge the gap between how I visualize things and what the real world is actually like at this specific level. And when you're pushing, when you're growing, when you're developing, at some point you need to recognize like what tools you need to put aside to give yourself room to cultivate new tools. And with those new tools, you need to kind of stop and reflect on all of the elements that your present environment is introducing to you so that you get a sense of how best to use these new tools that are helping you with this present situation. And some of those new tools involve being responsive, being reflective, being flexible, being malleable, because now, like, if it's new terrain, I need to recognize that I don't know a whole heck of a lot about how to navigate in this terrain. But if I want to give myself an advantage, I need to be present. I need to fill the gaps of my knowledge with what's taking place all around me, and then leverage these tools, flexibility, being adaptive, being responsive, so that I can keep moving forward, but now intelligently. I'm not moving forward with blinders, blind to what reality is teaching me. I'm moving forward, allowing the reality to shift, mold, and influence my perspective, influence my beliefs, my thoughts, my values, influence the trajectory in a way that I think is going to best serve me and my goals ultimately. The last tip that I want to share with you today is, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I think that this is such an important element of pushing towards goals and pushing towards objectives and being committed to your own personal growth and development. As you push towards the things that matter to you, is that you recognize that it is what it is. So what you get as a byproduct of that effort, of that time, energy, of those blood, sweat, and tears, that is what it is, right? And you might have put a value on your time, blood, sweat, and tears. You might have seen a specific outcome in your mind, but if that's not what you're seeing, it is what it is, but it doesn't mean you don't keep pushing, right? But it is what it is, in a way where you can bridge the gap between how you thought things were gonna be, your ideal of situations, and the reality of it as it is right now. And like, do it with a grain of salt. It's with a grain of salt, right? Because now you know. And I would rather know than not know, and I would rather recognize the actual value of my efforts and how that translates and how that shifts and changes as I allow my environment to influence my growth, influence my perspective, not allowing myself to be discouraged by the fact that, you know, a lot of how I visualize things going is just not translating that way in reality. But it is what it is. I would rather have my understanding of things be aligned to the reality of my situation than to be stuck in the clouds. Like, I love my ideals. I build my visions around those ideals. But in order to really achieve and attain an ideal, you need to be rooted in reality. And I think when you act, your actions give you a sense of the current realities, and you can leverage those current realities, those elements, to build continuously towards the ideal that you have in mind. But to have an ideal and to immediately be discouraged because your ideal is not translating with the actions that you figured would bring the ideal into fruition, I think that that's the biggest mistake you can make, because your ideal is this future state, and you don't know the steps between now and that future state. You don't know the steps between this current reality and that future state. But as you build, right, and as you act and as you engage, then you get a sense of, oh, well, how far am I actually from this ideal that I have in mind? And you move incrementally. You trust the process. You take things step by step, understanding that the ideal that you have in mind involves you being a certain way that you probably aren't yet. But in making those incremental steps, those incremental adjustments, it's influencing you as well. It's having an impact on your character. It's having an impact on who you are and how you show up in these specific spaces as well. And that is so important. And that is a piece that we typically overlook. We don't recognize that we have to shift and change to be able to carry the weight of the ideals that we have in mind, or carry the visions that we have in mind. And it's the process, it's the steps, the incremental steps between reality and the ideal that create that shift that we need in order to be ready when the ball drops. In any case, that was what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to give you food for thought, but I also wanted to give you just different life lessons that I've learned that have curbed my worry and have helped me to stay present, even in the midst of future planning. I think I love future planning. I love goals. I am a visionary person. I work towards ideals in every way that I expend my energy, but I love that my steps, that my perspective is rooted in reality. And this is the way that I do that. And being rooted in reality really curbs the worry, because everything that I take in, every situation or circumstance that takes place is just influencing my perspective and helping me make more informed, more intelligent steps forward. So what's there to worry about really when, all of that seems like gravy, gravy on the mashed potatoes. Okay, that might be a little bit corny. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep that in there. But I think that you have an ideal, you work towards it, and rather than be worried about things not working out the way you want to, expect that things are not going to work out the way that you want them to, because you have blind spots. You really don't know what you need to do or who you need to be to get there. But the environment, the world around you is going to give you a sense incrementally as you push forward, and you obviously don't give up. As it relates to that was pretty much all I wanted to talk about in this part 1. Part 2 is really about also giving ourselves an opportunity to enjoy the present moment and to enjoy life, and worry curbs and eats away at our joy. So when we talk about curbing worry, it's more than shifting our beliefs and our actions in areas that could generate worry. It's also giving yourself this space to just enjoy life and live freely. And that will be our second video this week. But before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So I invite you to join there and to subscribe to the different events that we have posted. We have a calendar of the events throughout the 2022 year. And we facilitate these live events in such a way where we're cultivating the life skills and the critical thinking to derive just more meaning and fulfillment out of life. And if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I suggest our package plans. With our package plans, you have unlimited access to our live events, as well as access to our workshops and webinars over and above those live events. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining in on our conversation, and we look forward to chatting with you very soon. We'll see you later.